Hey everyone, my name is Bridget and welcome to my channel. For today's video, it's going to be a little bit of a less exciting video, I guess, because the time has come where I need to talk about my bird. Now, you guys have heard me say several times that I'm going to film a video all about my Indian ringneck parakeet that I rescued 11 months ago, and talk about her behavior, why she is the way that she is, go over her past and everything. And I've been putting it off because honestly, I was hoping that there would be progress at this point. I'm sorry to say there's not a lot of positivity going on. There are good things and we will get to that, but it is still the same situation that it was 11 months ago. So I've put it off and now I cannot put it off any longer, and I gotta be honest with you guys, so this is why I'm filming this video today. So if you aren't aware of Sydney's adoption story, I will have it up here in the cards for you to watch if you would like to. It's a terrible video. I don't really like it anymore, but it's up there. It is what it is, and it briefly, very briefly explains some of the things that are going on, but I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail today. So again, can't have her out with me. She's not here, so it's just me today, sadly, and if you watch this video and you hear the story, you will know why. And hopefully if someone is going through a similar situation like this, you know, it may help you to go in the right direction as to what to do for your bird. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about Sydney, what I've done up to this point, what I'm going to do in the future, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that you guys are here for me and support me in this. This is a very difficult thing for me to go through, so I would really love to have your support, and I ask that you please be kind if you are gonna leave comments. I'm doing my best. I need your suggestions. I would love to hear any kind of insight or similar stories. If you guys have gone through this as well, please leave me a comment. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear success stories. If you guys have ever had a parrot that's very fearful and has a bad past and isn't really moving forward in life, but you've gotten them to come around in time, I definitely want to hear it. So please leave me a comment below letting me know your success story, or letting me know a current story that's not a success yet, but you are trying your best just as I am. Please let me know. I'd love to talk to you. So as I mentioned in the video of rescuing Sydney, we got her from a family who had purchased her from a breeder. She was hand-fed, hand-raised, was very socialized with human contact. So normally in those situations where you have a bird who was raised by a human from the age of a baby, they're a very good bird. They're very cuddly and interactive, and they train really well. It just generally goes positively. In the time that she was purchased, she was just a baby, very, very young. For the first year of her life, everything was great. She would cuddle, as I said, she would sit on shoulders, she would step up, like everything was great. Then she went through what is called the bluffing phase. And this happens when a bird begins to reach sexual maturity and they start to kind of test the limits of their owners a little bit and try and gain that dominance, because this is something that they would do in the wild. All birds are going to go through it. Every single one. And some cases are worse than others. And a lot of the time, the owner of the bird, depending on how well socialized they are, may never notice the bluffing phase because their bird's bluffing phase might be a little bit milder. In Sydney's case, hers was very drastic. She became a serious biter. And because of this, the family no longer wanted to handle her. They didn't know how to redirect that behavior. They didn't know how to handle it. So she became a caged bird. Now after this happened, the previous owners did some less than desirable things in order to correct Sydney's behavior, but it really only did more bad than it did good. So I was originally going to go more in depth and explain all the different faults I noticed that also contribute to Sydney being the way that she is, but I find it isn't very respectful or kind to bash someone rather than turn it into education. I see so many people online who have very strong opinions just as I do, but they make it so negative. And the state at which a person raises an animal does not always reflect the type of person that they are unless there is severe abuse and neglect taking place. Oftentimes people are simply uneducated, unaware, or don't have as much of a desire or passion for that animal as other people do. Sometimes they either don't think to do research or they simply don't want to do research. I don't agree with not doing research, but I don't think it warrants a very negative bashing of someone if they choose not to do research. So I will not be speaking on any other aspect of Sydney's past other than what is currently affecting my experience with her. I believe their intentions were fine on owning a bird, but I'm unsure of where their heart really was. However, they did an incredible thing in adopting her out to someone willing to keep trying with her. So first of all, it is a natural instinct to react to negative behavior. If a dog bites you, you are highly likely to holler, jump, flinch, shoo the dog away, or even flick them on the nose. Now, these are things that don't always work, but they're things that are often done when a dog does bite. So when those things happen, the dog is very likely to think of that as a negative reaction to their negative behavior. So they realize that they shouldn't do that behavior. That makes sense. Now, birds are the complete opposite. They don't respond to negativity at all. Any reaction to them is considered a positive reaction simply because they got the reaction. So if they bite you and you pull back and say, ouch, and maybe swat them away, they don't think, ooh, that was not a very good reaction. I just hurt my human. I probably shouldn't do that. They think, wow, that was really exciting. That human got really loud and excited. I'm gonna do that again. And the same applies to like screaming or squawking. If you yell at them or you tell them to shut up or something like that, they're not gonna think, ooh, that was too loud. I should probably be quiet. They're going to again say, wow, I got a good reaction out of her. That was exciting. I'm gonna do that again. These kinds of things only reinforce the behavior rather than correcting the behavior. That's just how birds work. Birds are extremely intelligent creatures that have a very different way of thinking than we humans do, or even dogs do, or cats do, or whatever else. They have a lot more control over us than we believe. You cannot teach them in the same way that you can a more domestic style animal. They don't take a negative reaction as an answer to a negative behavior. They take simply a reaction, positive or negative, as a response to that behavior. So that is what they want to do over and over and over again. So it is important when they are displaying negative behaviors that you ignore those behaviors for one, but also focus more on the positive behaviors. So if they're doing something that you love, that's when you reinforce. You don't need to say, no, don't do that, that's not nice, stuff like that, to negative behaviors. It works easier for them in their brains to be rewarded for great behavior so that they don't even do the negative behavior in the first place. So I mean, that was kind of like a little bit of the situation that's going on with Sydney in a nutshell. And now I just kind of want to explain what I've been dealing with up to this point. One of the things that they would have an issue with in their home was her noise level. Now, Sydney is loud. She's a very loud bird. She always has been and she always will be. And that's another thing just with birds in general, is they are loud. They are supposed to be loud. That's how they communicate. That is something that you have got to get over yourself with if you own a bird, is the noise level. You are not going to have a quiet bird. And if you do have a quiet bird, I don't know if they're as happy as they want to be, because birds make noise. You cannot take that away from them. However, Sydney's noise level was to an extreme level when we first brought her home. So when it did come to her loudness, the previous owners, once again, did things to only reinforce the loudness. They would often yell at her. They occasionally got so upset that they would shake her cage. They would cover her cage to quiet her down. They would give her treats in order to quiet her down for that moment, because you obviously can't make noise if you've got food in your mouth. When we first brought her home and she was making all of these noises and all of this squawking, it was almost as though she wanted to tell me, I want a treat. This is what I do for treats. Why aren't you giving me a treat? So because the previous owners would do that, she learned that behavior and she grew to expect it. When it came to the biting, in this previous home. They limited her activity and they left her closed in the cage for the majority of the time, because if she were out, you know, she also had the freedom to go to other places, to other people, and bite if she wanted to. So it becomes a situation where you say, well, if she's in the cage, she can't bite me, so I'm gonna leave her in the cage. Because she was a biter and they didn't want to deal with it at all, I guess, she was kept in the cage for the majority of her time in those 2 years. Because of that, and this happens a lot, it happens without a bird being a biter, but like it happens frequently when they are kept in the cage for so much of their life, they become very cage aggressive. So she did become extremely cage aggressive, and she is still extremely cage aggressive. It is very difficult for me to do anything in there. If I need to remove a perch or put a perch in, or toys, cleaning, even with food, she's become extremely territorial over her food. It's a lot, and I'm working on that. But this happened because the cage became all she really knew. It became her safe space. So if someone did come up to the cage and stick their hand in, obviously that is her home. You're sticking your hand in her place, she's gonna get you. At the same time, that's the only control that this family gave her. They took all control away from her, and when that happens, the behavioral problems that arise are huge. They also wore gloves around her just to protect their hands. I know a lot of people do that, but it actually makes the bird more fearful at that point. I mean, the day that I picked her up, they put on gloves to be able to take her out of the cage. It was, I don't even want to talk about it. I can't speak about the day that I picked her up because it was the most traumatizing experience. So gloves became an issue, obviously, and we do not use gloves around her ever. For me to use gloves in a positive way to be able to handle her, maybe hiding my hand so that she'll step up onto it, I can no longer use that kind of trick because she now sees gloves as a horrible, fearful experience, and that's just out of the question now. So with all of this being said, I'm giving you some details, but I don't want to go into too much detail with this. Because of all of this, Sydney has now become extremely fearful of hands. The only thing that she will do with hands is take a treat, and even then, sometimes she will snip at us or take the treat very aggressively because she wants your hand away from the cage, or she won't take the treat at all because she sees that hand and she's like, I'm not about to get involved in that today. We've been bitten so many times. Even just trying to be nice and give her a treat, it has turned negative at some points. She just doesn't want to be around them at all. She doesn't want to see them. She doesn't want them near the cage. It's a lot, and I know a lot of birds deal with this, so that's one of the reasons I'm talking about it, is because I need help with this bird who's so afraid of my hands, because in order to do anything with a bird, your hands basically have to be present. One of the things that I have tried to do for her in terms of getting her used to my hands is hand feeding. I've been doing this for months and it has its ups and downs. There are days where she's totally fine with me feeding her whatever, especially if it's something she really loves. But there are other days where she's just like, nope, I'm not gonna take this food. I don't want to be around it. I don't want your hands near me. That is it. Hand feeding is often used as a trick to get a positive association with hands for your bird, but I'm here to tell you that it doesn't always work that way, and it can take a very, 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 very long time. I've been at this for months, as I said, still hasn't really gotten any better, but I'll definitely keep trying and I'll let you know if it gets any better. So as I said a little while ago, the whole basis of her behavior happened from her getting into the bluffing stage. Now the sad part about bluffing and it not being redirected is that it can actually condition the bird to live the rest of its life that way.